Hello, and welcome to the Inspiring Moments with Kaylin radio show. I am your host, Kaylin John Louis, and I am super duper excited to be on the air with you all today, coming in all the way from New York. I hope everybody is having a beautiful, beautiful Saturday and you are doing all that you can to just relax. For those listening, you know that you are listening to a show that aims to inspire you to discover and become the best version of yourself while also providing conversations where you're able to hear real things going on in the world. I started off with motivation when I started Inspiring Moments with Kaylin, and I think for these few weeks, I'm just going to be pushing that. Everybody has stuff going on in their lives, and I think it's the best time for everybody just to get something encouraging. Um, I am very happy just where I am right now in life, and I'm happy to be here. But I encourage you to download the Hallelujah 95.3 app so that you can listen to this show on the go on your electronic devices, whether you're in the car or at work or just taking a moment for yourself, and tag a friend and have them tune in right now because today's show is truly one that I feel like you're going to get some notes out of. I know sometimes I joke around and I'm like, take out a notepad and actually take notes, but I mean that because today I am talking about something that honestly, in my opinion, doesn't get discussed enough, especially in my generation, and that's discernment. In a world full of noise, opinions, and distractions, learning how to quiet the chaos and clearly hear from God is essential. And we make so many daily decisions about people, purpose, jobs, relationships, and not every opportunity is a God opportunity. Not every door is meant to be walked through, and that's a lesson that some people have to learn even through the process of life. But discernment is more than just having a gut feeling. It's a spiritual sensitivity and it's a gift. And so today I'm unpacking the power of this gift. However, I'm not alone. I am joined by my special guest, Dr. Zemoria Johnson, and we're going to explore what discernment really is. We're going to talk about how to practice it, how to grow in it, and how to know when you're hearing from God versus your emotions or fears. And it's going to be heart to heart, spiritual led girl chat. That's what I want to call it. And I believe you'll be able to get some clarity, some peace, or just some own perspective for your journey. So, welcome to the show, Dr. Zemoria Johnson.
Oh, hey, Kaylin. Thank you for having me again.
I am so excited to have you on. Y'all know that she is not new to my show at all. I love her. I love her mother. I love the whole family.
Love you.
But I am just really happy to talk about this topic with you all because y'all really are getting a peek into what our normal conversations are like. I often get some of my best advice and guidance from Zemoria. And so, talking about the power of discernment, for those who may be unfamiliar or still figuring it out, how would you define discernment in both a spiritual and a practical sense?
Okay, well, again, thank you again for having me on, Kaylin. And when I think about that, the first thing that comes to mind is discernment just being something where in your heart of hearts, that gut feeling that something is telling you, I shouldn't do that, or okay, I think I can do that. And I already know that this conversation is going to be God led, it's going to be spiritual. I am an unashamed woman of God. So I can say without a doubt that when I think about discernment, it's that gut feeling, and I really call it the Holy Spirit, where again, it's like, should I cross the street when I see this huge semi truck getting ready to go across the street? And I'm trying to, that's already discernment without you even knowing, if you don't have a very, deep relationship with God. Discernment could be, okay, it's tax season. Should I be honest and say that I made an extra couple $1,000s, or should I just, put one less zero behind, that number? Or, okay, I don't like the way that this person that I'm interacting with at the moment is speaking to me. And I already know that I am a hothead. So I probably should just be quiet, stay calm, and just let them have their moment and then tell them, you know what, right now is not a good time. Let me walk away. So I just gave some practical examples of what discernment in, layman's terms is. It's just, again, that feeling of knowing I better not do that, or okay, I'm okay to go forward and do that.
I'll also agree, and I'll say that discernment is really, when I looked at it in a quote, it says discernment is the ability to see things for what they really are and not for what you want them to be. I think a lot of times people think that a situation is a specific way because they program that in their mind to believe that it is that way. And discernment at times is really coming to reality and like, nah, that's not what you were meant to do. That person, not that person, that opportunity is not that opportunity, but it's also having the eyes to see and the ears to hear and the ability to feel the emotional energy of truth and being able to really sit within yourself and know that, okay, this moment I need to listen to myself. I need to be honest with myself. I think that's the hardest part about discernment for some people because they get in their headspace and they're like, okay, what's the difference between being discerned or having discernment and just common sense? What would you say in that? Because some people feel that way.
I think that common sense and discernment go hand in hand, right? And sometimes, especially right now, when you turn on the news, for example, it's certain things that you would think people, especially who may be twice as old as you, would already know is not right to do. And again, regardless of if you believe in God or not, it's just, the practical things to do as a good human being. But when you are a Christian, even up until this conversation, God has been dealing a lot with me concerning discernment. Almost every sermon that I've listened to over the last few months has discussed the power and the importance of praying for wisdom and discernment. And if you were to ask, family and friends about me, they would tell you that I do a pretty good job of just knowing, like, again, I don't think this is what God wants me to do. And sometimes I think we can also get in our own way when God is waiting on us to move forward. And when He's giving you that sense of peace, when you prayed, asking God for discernment, and God will literally, as soon as you pray that prayer, an hour later, a day later, a week later, you're speaking to somebody or you're just driving and you see this sign. And it's like, okay, is just me having bad heartburn or is this really what I just asked God for clarity on? And more than likely, it's you asked God for discernment. He gave you discernment. Now use your discernment and move forward. So again, common sense would tell you, okay, I already know that I'm supposed to be following this diet. And of course, I had to bring in health being that I have a pharmacist background. I know that I should not be going through the drive through every day when I know I could have just gone home and made me something to eat for dinner the night before. So that way I would have a healthy lunch because I want to look good for my next girls' trip. And I want to go to the doctor and I want a healthy report. So those are also opportunities where it's like you don't even need discernment. You already know using common sense that in order for me to have a healthy, productive life, I have to already go ahead and make those provisions. But when it comes to something like a job opportunity, or like you said earlier in your introduction, who you should date, who you should marry, right now we're seeing a lot of topics, even in the pulpit, where now we're starting to hear more about dating, relationships, things like that. And it's, are these people genuinely talking about these topics because they are concerned about how it's affecting the body and how people aren't using discernment when it comes to those type of relationships? Or is it just something else to talk about because that's right now what the culture wants to deal with? So again, you'll know as you continue to walk, and if you ask God for discernment and wisdom, He'll let you know, like, okay, this is common sense, this is discernment, move forward.
And I'm glad you said that he'll let you know because I also think some people think that it's a gift that some people are born with, some people learn. Like I feel like it varies on the person. Like I'm not going to say that discernment is something everybody understands. I didn't understand discernment, honestly, full heartedly till I was in high school. I know that's younger for some people, but I think even being in college is definitely that space of you can be sitting here right now. Your friends are like, I want to go out. I want to do this. I want to have fun. And then you feel something inside yourself that say, don't go out tonight. And I promise y'all, I've had so many times where I want to hang out with my friends or I want to just go enjoy myself and I feel something within me say don't do it. And I promise about 8 out of 10 of the times I've done that, something crazy has happened at something I didn't go to. And it's things like that that you have to pay attention to because there are some things that, or some places for some people, especially when you know that you're a believer, you just won't be able to go. You won't be able to do because of that power of discernment.
Right. And I think that's what separates you because if you have friends and y'all are all Christians, however, y'all's walks are different, sometimes you have to be the leader of that group where you show, like, I mean it when I say that I'm trying to honor God with my life and the choices that I make. And in order for your friends to see just how true you are to this, sometimes that requires you to go ahead and be like, you know what, as much as I may want to go, as much as I may want to do, I better not. And hopefully, with time, your friends will show you, like, or rather, you will show your friends, okay, now I know next time I should probably just do like Kaylin and stay back because when I decided to go to that event that she decided not to participate in, something went down. And if I could also reverse that, if you're noticing that you're always the one in the group who always has to make the best decision, you may need to reassess and pray, ask for wisdom and discernment about that circle. Okay? Because sometimes people are in your life for a season. And that's what I'm going through right now. Where people who you're hoping will be in your life for a lifetime are really just supposed to be seasonal. And it's unfortunate, especially if, like, for me, I love hard, I love deeply, I love my friends. Some of my friends who've been featured on my podcast while we're waiting, we go way back, like middle school back, okay, without telling my age, because But with that said, like, if I notice that I'm always the one in the friend group who is the only one who's trying to be best at my career, best with financial decisions, best with health decisions, overall life addition, like expectations, if I'm the only one in my circle who's concerned and doing the best that I can, I need to really reassess and use some discernment about, okay, are these individuals really supposed to be in my life for a lifetime, or is it time to reassess? And sometimes you also need to ask God and for wisdom and discernment regarding yourself, because sometimes we are the problem. And if you're noticing, like, every time I try to, introduce myself to a new group or participate in this hobby, it's like 1 minute they're cool with me, and then the next they all have a problem with me, and we're quick to point the finger at them. But then it's like, wait a minute, could I be the contributory factor as to why all of these people don't want to hang around me? Is there something that I'm doing or saying that's causing people to not discern that they don't want me to be a part of their collective? So I hope I didn't ramble on with that one.
You didn't. You touched right on that point because I was going to say as well, even when it comes to those friendships and relationships in your life, it really can be you sometimes. My mom grew up teaching me that if you got 5 people in your circle and all them 5 people saying the same thing about you and there's no change in there, it's probably you and not them. And I think sometimes people don't want to recognize the fact that there's something going on because we will be real. Like everybody goes through moments where you're not okay. You go through seasons and periods where sometimes you're cool, sometimes you're not. And you
Right,
go through things within yourself that you may hear from your friends. Okay, what's going on if they're checking in on you? And
right,
those are the real friends who will check in on you and make sure that, okay, I'm noticing some things are different. What's going on? Who will check in on you? So
right,
that you do have those things in place. But I think that if you want true wisdom in discernment, you also can't underestimate the need to check in with yourself for number one. But number two, even if you're not a believer, it's still important to go to the source. And that's the truth of what's going on. That can either be the truth for believers in God's word, or even if you aren't a believer, the truth of the situation. Because I think sometimes we play movies in our head, as my godmom was saying, we get so wrapped into things that are not going on in reality.
Come
And
on.
so then our discernment in the way that we think is knocked off because we're playing something in our head that was never there to begin with.
It's good. And I like that, when reviewing your questions for this conversation, one of the things that first comes to mind is how you start your day. I think that one of the ways we can really get better with discernment is how you first take the first hour or so of your day. And of course, life happens and you may not be able to do it every day, but there has to be a level of consistency. So I'll just use me practically speaking. When I wake up, the first thing that I'm doing is not checking. Well, I'm not on social media, but even if I had it still, you won't see me scrolling on Instagram, scrolling on Facebook, scrolling on TikTok. I'm scrolling the Holy Bible. I gave myself a challenge to try to read the entire Bible in a year. I fell a little short, but I made it finally to Revelation. So thank God for that. And thank you. And even with that, I have the Bible app where you can read each day the Bible verse of the day, listen to the guided posts, and you can even include prayers. And when I have that moment with God, there's this level of peace that helps because, once you leave your home and you're in the world, you can start getting anxious. I mean, again, we see so much chaos going on right now beyond our belief. And if you don't take time to just center yourself, gather yourself, and ask God, to help you through the day, ask Him just, Lord, give me the discernment, the wisdom that I need for today as you move forward in your day, that can make or break the certain decisions that you need to make with discernment. So I'm glad you brought that point up.
I think the other part too is when we think about the things that you go through and you think about those situations in life, you also have to, even if you're not spiritual, like I would, if you are spiritual, just read Proverbs, NLT version. That'll get you through to learn some key concepts. But even if you aren't somebody who reads Proverbs, read a quote, listen to a motivational thing. But even when I'm thinking about that, you were talking about some ways that you could practice discernment. When you're in therapy or self reflection, how does discernment show up when people are trying to heal or grow spiritually?
Mm, I think one of the ways could be, again, if you've prayed and you've asked God about a certain topic, whether it's a relationship, a finance decision, when you take time to go ahead and ask God, just reveal to me what I need to know and how to best move forward with this, that gives you the opportunity to then see how God will move in that therapy session or that counseling session. And sometimes, because again, we're creatures of habit, God will be quick to not only tell you once, but He'll confirm it 2, 3 times, or sometimes as many times as necessary, depending on the type of person. So I think that will be a way.
Thank you for those points. Even when you talk about that as well, though, I think another part that's key and important, just when you're in a space of trying to grow and heal, is making sure that you really do understand what you're going through. I think before you can even get to the point where you can discern, you can't discern if your headspace is not in the right place. And I've learned that even within myself. I was open on my show. I talked about the fact that mentally I was going through some stuff in my last semester. And I think that it can throw off your discernment. It can throw off how you think, how the people you let into your life, the situations you let into your life, depending on how your mind is feeling and what is going on and the things that you're doing. And so even when you're in that space, I think it's definitely important to make sure that you're taking time to check in with yourself, whichever way you need to. When I think about my prayer time and I think about my quiet time and how I stay grounded, those are the things that help me hear God clearly. But then I also hear some people who kind of wrestle because they're like, okay, how can I distinguish between knowing that God's talking to me and knowing that it's my own thoughts or emotions? How do you do that personally?
One of the ways is again, with time, asking God for discernment, just taking moments of stillness. And it's something about when I'm just taking time in the bathroom, getting ready for work or getting ready to go out somewhere. If I don't have the music playing in the background or listening to some type of podcast and I'm literally just getting ready, God will literally speak to me. I don't know what it is about the bathroom, but it just is so quiet. And then I just get this unction. And God has done it several times. So when I recognize, like, okay, whenever I'm in the bathroom and when I really put myself in a position to allow God to disseminate whatever it is that I've been praying about, asking for, clarity, discernment on a certain situation, that's where He'll do it. And so I would say for individuals who are trying to strengthen their discernment, especially when it comes to God, pay attention to where you're recognizing when God really speaks to you. Is it right before you go to bed? Is it right when you get up in the morning? Could He be speaking to you through dreams? And again, could He be speaking to you through people? But again, even if you feel like you've heard something through somebody, make sure you go back to Him to confirm if what that person said was really of Him, of yourself, or of the enemy.
Please do, because we got a lot of false prophets, a lot of people who think that they know what they talking about. And I'm not saying that I can't question nobody else's spiritual gift. I can't say what they know, what they don't know. But I use the practical thing. If you see the movie Sinners, I'ma just leave that there. I only watched it because I went with a friend. But the only thing is, sometimes you can get confused and think it's from God, and it's not from God. It's the devil in disguise and something nice. So all I'm saying is be careful who you hear things from. But when I even say that, let me talk about just things in your life. Like when we think about discernment and how it protects us from people or opportunities, that's really big because there's a lot of things that we think are meant for us. There's job opportunities, there's people, there's family members even who we think should stay in our lives. And those are things and those are the relationships we have in our lives, the many ships, those are the things that we have to have discernment sometimes to protect ourselves. And then when you think about that as well, then you have some people who are just like, okay, we're talking about discernment. Then you hear red flags, and it's like, okay, so if I'm getting a red flag, does this mean I discern? So, how can you tell the difference between a red flag and a personal fear or insecurity?
Oh,
Because
that's
that's big.
good. That's good. I think it again goes back to that gut feeling, that unction, the Holy Spirit speaking to you. And one of the pastors who I've listened to faithfully, who's discussed a lot concerning discernment, Pastor Darius Daniels of Change Church, definitely recommend him, is when he specifically talked about dating and relationships. He was saying how any type of standard that you have, that's just the floor. That's what you expect. Point blank, period. Any expectations that you may have, those could be considered the ceiling. So if you're expecting your future partner to be a certain height, certain weight, those are preferences, but that's not an expectation. An expectation or a standard would be things like you expect them to be honest. You expect them to show up when they say they will. You expect them to, if they say they're going to pay half of the rent, they pay half of the rent. And so a red flag, and these are not my own personal examples with the rent. I'm just using these just so the people know, because Kayla is laughing really hard. So I don't want people to think that I'm talking about myself. Okay. All right. I'm using discernment. This does not apply to Zemoria. So with that said, if you notice that your expectation of this person is to pay their half of the rent, be honest when they say they're going to pay their half, and they don't, and it happens every single month. You don't even need discernment to know that they're not going to pay their half, but there was something, a red flag, a little sooner prior to them paying the rent where they didn't pick up the check. I just read about a lady who went on a date and the guy asked her to pay the full bill, not just her half, and he pay the full bill, and she did. She paid the whole thing. Couldn't be me, but she paid the whole bill. And then the dude was upset with her because she blocked him because he said at the end of the day, "Oh, I just tested you to see if you were a gold digger." I can't make this up. That's a red flag. So had the
Absolutely.
lady decided to continue to date him, marry him, move in with him, and then she's expecting him to pay his half of the rent, had she decided to stay with this man, it's like that was a red flag on the first date when he showed you that he wasn't going to pay his half then. So emotions will be on him because sometimes too you can see, you can sense whether or not somebody will crash out. That's a new term the youngins are using, where somebody are using their emotions rather than thinking logically to make certain decisions. If you're feeling like you're always having to make decisions with your emotions first, you're not using discernment. Something else that I hear Pastor Daniel say from Change Church is that feelings are not facts. So you have to again take a moment, even if it means like, hey, let me walk away and rethink the situation one more time. That's how again you can tell, okay, I'm not using discernment, I'm using my emotions. And then insecurity, going back to the man who tried the woman with the gold digging piece, that means that there's still some unhealed trauma that you have to work through. And one, you have to be willing to acknowledge that you're still hurt. Second of all, you have to be willing and hold yourself accountable to get help. And thirdly, don't you ever in your life ever say on a date that you just wanted to see if they were gold digger. That's just wrong on so many levels. So that was a good example. I don't know why that was the first one that came to mind, but I mean, it's really simple. But when it comes to big decisions like, do I move halfway across the country for this job? Do I marry this person? Do I quit my job without a backup plan? You know, all these different decisions, like you said before, Kaylin, require some level of discernment. God is so amazing as our father, as our provider, that one of the things he allowed all of us to have is the power of choice. And if we choose to allow him to show us what we need to see and ask him to take away our emotions, take away our insecurity, and just fill us up with wisdom and discernment, he will do that. But one of the most important pieces of all of this is being willing to wait. And that was one of the premises for the start of my podcast. And it's coming back for all the waiters out there.
Yes,
I
it
appreciate
is.
y'all patience. It's coming back really soon. So thank y'all for your patience. But it's really the art of waiting and being willing to, while you're waiting for that confirmation, for that discernment, for that wisdom, can God trust you with the silence and wait on you to wait on him before he can give you that yes or no. So I hope that helps.
Y'all better give two snaps. I'm telling y'all, y'all better be taking notes. But last question before we wrap up. I promise we be needing to do part twos on our shows because it's just, they're always flowing. But the last part of discernment and the power of it is when we miss it. Because that's the thing. Sometimes we don't always get it right on the first time. And
Yeah.
there are situations that happen so quickly. I'll just ask, how can someone recover when they feel like they made the wrong decision or ignored God's leading?
Well, first off, ask God for forgiveness and then forgive yourself. And don't be so hard on yourself and thinking that, you're a terrible person or the world is over because you didn't get it right. One of the beautiful things again about God is that not only is he willing to give us the power of choice, but he's also able to give us the power of, just fresh renewal that's needed for us to be more intentional the next time he tells us to go right instead of left. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about when you really have a true relationship with God with time, when things happen and you come to him unashamed and with the willingness to learn and grow better. How can you be upset? How can you be upset with that? That's what makes him a loving, gracious God. So with time and with intentionality, I think if you notice that, every time I try to do this, it doesn't work out, take some time and reassess. And then think about in the middle of your ask for discernment, who else did you have in your ear? Were you really being led by God? Were you really being led by God and this person, God and that person? Were you just going just based off this one sign that you saw? What exactly did you do that had you made the not so good decision this time around and learn from it? But ultimately, ask God for forgiveness, forgive yourself, and with that grace, know that it's not the end of the world. That's what life is. It's about sometimes falling, but it's the way in which you get back up that makes the most important difference.
There you have it, y'all. I hope y'all enjoyed this. I promise I'm gonna have to do a part two. We're gonna talk about that because this was good, and there's so much more we can talk about on this subject. But thank you so much, Dr. Zemoria Johnson, for being on the show, life coach and purpose pusher. Can you share really quickly how people can get in contact with you?
Yeah, please head over to my website, drzemoria.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn, Zemoria A. Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you so much, y'all. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Please make sure to trust your gut in everything that you're doing. And before I leave, I ask that you connect with me on all my social media platforms. You can find them all on www.kaylinscaringconnection.com. And as I wrap up the show, I want you all to know and remember one thing. You are loved, you are enough, and you matter. Don't let anyone tell you any different. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next KCK Inspiring Moments with Kaylin radio show. Until next time, be blessed.